Hello, you're watching Special Dialogue here on TVR World. We're coming to you from the capital, Jakarta, Indonesia. I am Rahmat Idris, and for today's editions, we are delving deeper into the bilateral cooperations and diplomatic relations between the Republic of Indonesia and the Special Administrative Zone of Hong Kong. As we know, Hong Kong is the second biggest trading partner to Indonesia, helping us shape our economy. But what more to explore? How can we delve even deeper beyond the economic and trade cooperations between Indonesia and Hong Kong? We're here to discuss on that, and joining for the conversations all the way from Hong Kong is the Consul General of the Republic of Indonesia in Hong Kong, Mr. Yul Edison, join us virtually. And also here in the studio, we have international politics observer, Mr. Kusnanto Anggoro. A very good day to you, Mr. Kus. Thank you for joining us. And also from Jakarta, Indonesia to Hong Kong, Mr. Consul General, Mr. Yul Edison. Thank you very much for joining us, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Rahmat and Mr. Kusnanto.
Right, but Yul, on to my first question to you. I mentioned briefly at the opening that Hong Kong is the second biggest trading partner to Indonesia, right after the mainland China. But before we go deeper into the economic and trade cooperations, being where you are in Hong Kong as a Consul General, how would you describe the current landscape of the bilateral and diplomatic relations between Indonesia and Hong Kong, Mr. Consul General?
So, thank you, Mr. Rahmat. In general, I can say that Indonesia and Hong Kong have maintained friendly relations and close ties built on mutual respect, cooperation, and shared values. The bilateral relations between Indonesia and Hong Kong has seen significant developments in recent years, particularly following Indonesia's G20 presidency in 2022 and ASEAN chairmanship in 2023. In terms of economy, Indonesia is an important trading partner of Hong Kong, while Hong Kong is one of the largest sources of foreign direct investment in Indonesia.
In your opinion, let me go over to you, Pak Kus. It's undeniable that Hong Kong is a very important, essential partners in economy and in trade to Indonesia. But do we go beyond that, Mr. Kus?
We can discuss later, but I guess the most important point between this feature is that Hong Kong is on the very unique positions within the context of Indonesian bilateral relation with China and so on, because Hong Kong is in the outpost for the Chinese exposure to international world, including to bilateral relation with Indonesia. At the same time, Hong Kong is so important in Indonesia because of the economic, judiciary, and administration of Hong Kong, which is in fact more compatible to Indonesian rather than to Chinese and so on, at least until sometime the next year possibly. But at least when we are watching what's happening during the last, say, 20 years or even 30 years and so on, yes, Hong Kong remain very important, and not only important, but in fact it's very unique. Even when we are looking at another data, for example, our bilateral economic relation with Hong Kong is $5.40 or $5.20 billion. With China, is maybe 5.60 or 5 point something. So, but in terms of relative term, the position of Hong Kong is very important for both Indonesia and China.
Yeah. Right. Back to you, Mr. Consul General. Piggybacking on what you just said on how important it is to have Hong Kong established as our trading partners for the region, I would also like to highlight the fact that it is also, as mentioned also briefly by Mr. Kus, is that Hong Kong is one of the main gates with the mainland China. How do you think we maintain our relationship with Hong Kong as a special administrative zones within the mainland, the Republic of China? The People's Republic of China?
Well, this is the unique position of Hong Kong right now. We know that Hong Kong, it is the, mainland China, it is implements the policy, the principles, it is one country, two systems, And the position of Hong Kong right now, it is as super connector. Hong Kong is as connecting platforms in going global and to penetrate to mainland's market, This is the first position. The second position, Hong Kong is a super value adder, because Hong Kong, it is the center for, at least for 5 factors, center for, or let's say, financial hub, center for trade hub, Center for Law and Intellectual Property Rights, and Center for Technology and Innovation. And the last one, Center for People to People Exchange. This is the unique position of Hong Kong. So that's why we need to maintain our relationship with Hong Kong in the years to come.
Right, a very important hub for at least the continent of Asia, impacting Southeast Asia, where we hope Indonesia can lead, at least for the Southeast Asian region, Mr. Yul. But I'd like to go a bit further on what are some of the biggest commodities that we are currently trading with Hong Kong's that has made it a significant trading partners to our country, vice versa, Indonesia to Hong Kong as well.
From Indonesia, that we export the bird's nest, in order to penetrate to China market, And the second things, the second biggest product, it is jewelry, And from Hong Kong, we import the electrical machinery, And also the some mining products from Hong Kong,
Yeah.
But this is actually the fact right now. Our trade value, trade volume between Indonesia and Hong Kong is, for me personally, is not unacceptable, because we are number 6 right now, amongst ASEAN member countries. The number 1 it is Singapore, and number 2 it is Vietnam. Number 3 Malaysia, number 4 Thailand, number 5 is Philippines, and Indonesia is number 6. We are a big country. We have many, the resources. How comes that our position right now is number 6, in terms of trade volume with Hong Kong?
Right, and also being a significant hub for the region. Before we go further on you. With you on that, Mr. Kus, it is indeed, as mentioned by Mr. Consul General, we cannot go beyond the fact that it is an important hub for IT, for digital infrastructures, for technology, and how do we learn from Hong Kong in terms of having some sort of adaptive technologies and lesson learned from Hong Kong to be implemented in our country in the process?
There's still a big question, actually. We are looking at what the Consul General already mentioned, that in fact the relationship between Indonesia and Hong Kong is somewhat like asymmetrical, that the role of Indonesia in the Hong Kong economy is much less important rather than the opposite one, rather than Hong Kong role in the Indonesian economy.
Are you saying that we need them more than they need us?
Something like that.
In layman terms,
it's can't, because when Consul General mentioning that Indonesia is the 6th rank among ASEAN member countries, also meaning that in fact we demand for the Hong Kong to take Indonesian interests more. Of course, it has been developing so quickly during the last couple of years, but there are many things could possibly be developed in future. What already mentioned is about the traditional trade and investment and so on in terms of jewelry and all the commodities and this kind of stuff. But we are looking at the global trend and including what might be happening in Indonesia in the next 5 to 10 years. In fact, there is still huge potential in terms of, for example, blue economies, green energy, transition energy, global climate change, human resource development, technology, innovation, and so on and so forth. So I think our task now is to trying to elevate the bilateral relationship between Indonesia and Hong Kong beyond traditional relationship, with in fact, of course, with different criteria, different measurement, and of course, different everything, and perhaps also with different rule of the game, especially on the intellectual property right, on tariff barrier, and this kind of stuff, because we cannot apply innovation with the similar rule with like traditional commodities, you see.
Right. Over to you, Mr. Yul Edison. One interesting thing was said by Mr. Kus here was that we need to elevate our relations with Hong Kong in terms of discovering more avenues of cooperations and just exploring every possible opportunities, and probably also, lift up our number from the 6th to 5th and maybe 2nd after Singapore. What are the ways? How do we go about this, Mr. Consul General?
So what we need right now, it is, the exchange of visits amongst the high-ranking officer from Indonesia and Hong Kong. Actually, last year the chief executive of Hong Kong visited Indonesia. He met with our president, Pak Jokowi, and he also he said that we need to boost economic relationship between Indonesia and Hong Kong because we see that many opportunities between two economies, So now that, how do we do that one, so the first one that we need to intensively, doing like a visit of exchange, amongst high-ranking officials and also the businessmen amongst, between Hong Kong and Indonesia, In terms of investment, actually, Mr. Rahmat, we are a little bit happy because we are number 2 right now, after Singapore, in terms of foreign direct investment of Hong Kong in Indonesia. Last year, we are number 3 after mainland China.
Right. We'll go deeper on the foreign direct investments and the opportunities for them to explore here in the country. Mr. Consul General and also Mr. Kus in the next segment. We'll be right back right here on Special Dialogue on TVI World. Don't go anywhere. And you are still watching Special Dialogue here on TVR World, coming to you from the capital Jakarta, Indonesia, where we are exploring opportunities of cooperations between Indonesia and Hong Kong. And still joining in for the conversations is the Consul General of the Republic of Indonesia to Hong Kong. All the way from Hong Kong is the Mr. Yul Edison, and right here in the studio, international politics observer, Mr. Kusnanto Anggoro. Over to you again, Mr. Consul General. You mentioned briefly that we are in the second position, number 2 for the volume of investments from Hong Kong here in the country. What are some of the most interesting parts of our countries that Hong Kong is currently investing?
So I can say, that over the next few years, that some areas could see significant investment inflows from Hong Kong due to Indonesia growing economic and strategic importance. This includes, among others, it is infrastructures, including transportation and logistics, ports and airport, as well as urban development, or like smart cities in Indonesia, because we know that Hong Kong is one of the center for technology and innovations. The second area is digital economy and technology, including e-commerce and fintech. And the third one, it is manufacturing and industry, especially in joint ventures in industrial parks and special economic zones, which leverage Indonesia's growing market and skilled workforce. And last but not least, it is tourism and hospitality, including development of hotel and resort, as well as ecotourism projects.
Right. Are we aiming to have more of Hong Kong's investments in the countries and more sectors for them to put their money in, Mr. Consul General?
Yeah. Last year when the chief executive of Hong Kong met with our president also, mentions that we need the, investors from Hong Kong to invest in our new capital, Nusantara, like for developing like green energy.
Right. And are they showing interest for the new capital?
They're still working on this project, actually. That I got information from my colleagues, these businessmen in Hong Kong, that next month that there will be 50 investors from Hong Kong will be visiting new capital.
Right. And also, as you said, that they're quite advanced in terms of smart technologies, building smart cities, and our future capital is aimed to do just that. Mr. Kus, what more can you add on this? Is it a light at the end of the tunnels for these investments coming in from China to the new capital in other sectors as well?
Yes, I think it's very very
Hong Kong, I should
interesting
say.
phenomenon from Hong Kong.
Yeah.
Because we are looking at from geopolitical perspective, for example, we know that there are some sort of competition, if not rivalry, between China on the one hand and the United States and Japan, Australia on the other, that one thing.
Yeah.
And within that context, actually Hong Kong could possibly play a more important role. And also within the context of Hong Kong and Indonesia relation as well, especially on the issues like infrastructure. So the main question would likely be just try to understand that it would be more effective if the relationship, triangular relationship, Hong Kong, China, and Indonesia is play important role. It would be more interesting if between Hong Kong and China, mainland China would be complementary one to the other. So while Indonesia and China mainland were involved in many like Belt Route Initiative and Digital Silk Road and so on, then why Hong Kong could become more specifically important within the context of like smart city, financial technology, social media possibly, and so on and so forth, which basically is a higher layer in terms of technology within the context of digital technology.
Right. Mr. Consul General, Mr. Yul, we know that right now we don't require any visa coming into Hong Kong, at least for the first 30 days, making it easier to explore and to know more of Hong Kong. But in terms of these sort of relations, how would you describe the possibility of our people visiting more Hong Kong in the future, open up more opportunities of cooperations? You mentioned that we need to elevate at least business-to-business meetings from Indonesia to Hong Kong.
So that is, we talk about the the number of Indonesians, I mean, coming to Hong Kong.
Yeah.
It is last year that there were around almost 300 Indonesia. I mean, like 300,000 Indonesia visited Hong Kong last year. I mean, on the other hand, that under the contrary, that from Hong Kong to Indonesia, only 14,000. Can you imagine that one? One of the problems, mentions by chief executive that we revoked the, visa, free visa exemption, for Hong Kong's people, like 2 years ago, So this is one of the important things. The second thing is about the connectivity. In terms of the flight, directly from Hong Kong to Indonesia. Right now, that we have Garuda from Indonesia to Hong Kong directly, direct flight from Jakarta, and we need to have more. So I got information from general manager of Garuda in Hong Kong that they will open a new route from Denpasar to Hong Kong, probably next month.
Right.
So I think by having this one, we can elevate, we can boost, the people-to-people exchange between Indonesia and Hong Kong.
Right. Well, it's good to hear that Garuda Indonesia has a direct route from Jakarta to Hong Kong, but doesn't Cathay Pacific have one as well, Mr. Yul?
Cathay Pacific has the routes, direct flights from Hong Kong to Jakarta, also from Hong Kong to Surabaya and Hong Kong to Bali.
Right. Right. So let's talk more about the presence of our Indonesian people, Indonesian diaspora in Hong Kong. I'd like to get your perspective on that, Mr. Consul General, because as we know, we make up quite a huge amount of Indonesian people residing, working, and studying in Hong Kong. What's the latest figure of Indonesian diaspora in Hong Kong at this point in time, Mr. Yul?
Based on the last data that we received from the Hong Kong Immigration Office, the number of Indonesians living in Hong Kong right now is 170,000.
170.
It is 150,000. Yeah, 170,000.
Right.
And 150,000 are working as domestic helpers. So we call them, Indonesian migrant, workers,
Yeah.
So, but around 15,000 is a professional.
Right. And we also received words that just last month, in May 2020, 2 months ago, rather, in 2024, you were personally involved in the business matching for professionals and skilled workers between Indonesia and Hong Kong, and that is, I think it took place in Hong Kong. Correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Yul Edison. What were some of the significant outcomes from these gatherings?
Can you mention, I mean, like the name of the event?
The business matching for professional and skilled workers for our Indonesian workers currently residing and working in Hong Kong. That was with the agency of the.
Yeah, if I'm not mistaken, it was in Macau, between Indonesia
It was in Macau,
and Macau.
yeah. It was in
May.
Macau, if I'm not mistaken, so correct me if I'm wrong on that. So what were the outcomes of these meetings? Because we expect that from the work ethics alone of our workers, so there is an eagerness to work in Hong Kong and in Macau as well.
Yeah. So what I do right now, that I'm met with my counterparts from Hong Kong sites, and for instance, the Secretary for Labor, and also the hospital authority, and also with universities. I already visited 5 top universities in Hong Kong, met with their president or their vice president. They are interested in having more Indonesian students in Hong Kong, and also they needs professional nurse, So, but in the future, we still working on this project actually. In November, we will be holding a biggest Indonesian event in Hong Kong in the last 10 years. We call it Indonesian Week 2024,
Wow.
And
what's in the agenda, Mr. Yul?
The agenda, it is ranging from, the economics and investments, economic and trade relations, including arts and culture, And the event will be for 3 days, from the 1st to the 3rd of November. And the first day, the 1st of November, it is like business forum, And there are 2 sessions, of this business forum. And after these 2 sessions, that we will be organizing a business matching, by inviting, some relevant ministries in Indonesia and also businessmen in Indonesia, and we will connect them with their counterpart in Hong Kong.
Right. We're going to talk more about that, so we have to take a quick break. Mr. Consul General and Pak Kus, stay with us right here in Special Dialogue on TVR World. We'll be right back. Thank you for staying with us on Special Dialogue here on TVR World. We are still exploring cooperation opportunities between Indonesia and Hong Kong. And I'm still joined by international politics observer Kusnanto Anggoro here in the studio. And over in Hong Kong, the Consul General of the Republic of Indonesia in Hong Kong, Mr. Yul Edison. Pak Kus, I'd like to explore more, just echoing what has been said by Mr. Consul General, that we have plenty, if not one of the biggest Indonesian diaspora's figures or numbers abroad in Hong Kong, over 170,000 Indonesian people residing there, making up most of them as Indonesian migrant workers. What more have you heard about the contributions and the significance of Indonesian populations in Hong Kong?
Well, I think the very foundation of the intensified and prospectful relation between countries, especially cultural relation, that include emotional, that include how to enhance understanding among people and so on and so forth. And such questions become then people's to people's strategy or relationship very important. And within that context, there is no doubt that language is, of course, become a prominent role within that context. So undoubtedly, if we are discussing about how many students in Indonesia actually staying or studying in Hong Kong, or even
hundreds
how many,
of thousands of them have been registered.
It's much larger rather than how many thousands students in Indonesia in mainland China. because of the differentiation. China uses little Mandarin, for example.
Yeah.
In
So the
Hong Kong,
language barrier is less of a challenge in Hong
mainland.
Kong
That
for
is
these
very
students.
potential that could possibly to exploit in future, not only in the students and the academia and so on, but also among the professional and this kind of stuff. And of course, the changing generation in Indonesia also occurring, that I think English is becoming more accessible to your generation instead of my generation in the
We
past.
are exposed
and so
to
on.
more English
Yeah.
materials,
Sure.
thus getting more used
So
to it
I'm
than
very
we do in the
optimistic that
past.
even naturally, of course, this space of relationship is going to improve in the next couple of years.
Right.
Yeah,
As is the case with Singapore, we have a lot of interest to study there from our students due to the language ease.
Yeah.
It's English,
Yeah.
as is the case in Hong Kong
Yeah.
as well, Mr. Kus. But the naughty question here is a lot of these students have graduated from the significant and prominent universities in these countries, but then they didn't want to go back. They don't want to go back to our country. They just want to stay in those countries seeking work opportunities instead of returning homes. How do you respond to this phenomenon?
Well, it's the issue of domestic and national policies here in Indonesia. I think it is always challenging for, say, national government in Indonesia to devise more comprehensive, holistic, and also accommodative and adaptive toward how diaspora, if you like, would like to come back to Indonesia and so on. That depend on so many, of course, factors, opportunity, and so on and so forth. I think that is basically our policy, a demand for more adaptive and so on and so forth. It's nothing to do with the policy in Hong Kong and everywhere around the globe. Right. In fact, it was my problem. It was our problem here in Indonesia that we should adapt more toward the possible change to get more diaspora, I say, come back to Indonesia. Because unless that being so, then we will always end up very not competitive in terms of the future of economic and political relation, which relies so much on the innovations, creativity, network, and so on and so forth.
Right. Yeah. Mr. Consul General, I hope you're still with us, sir. One of the biggest concerns about having a large amount of Indonesian migrant workers in other countries is related to the aspect of security and the aspect of the human aspect of it, as we see a lot of cases in other countries. In Malaysia, for example, the embassy is always inundated by thousands of people coming in with different problems to be solved by the ambassador, also in the Middle East states. What sort of general problems pertaining to our Indonesian migrant workers that your Consul Generals is facing at this point in time, Mr. Yul?
Mr. Rahmat, in general, I can say that the problems, of our citizens in Hong Kong, it's not really, it's not many compared to other countries, you know, because Hong Kong is one of the, the best, what we call it is like in terms of security in the world, you know.
Right.
And in addition to that, the law in Hong Kong, it is really clear, you know, and the law enforcement particularly, you know. But the case of our citizens in Hong Kong, particularly our migrant workers, it is related to immigration's issue like overstay, you know, and that's it, you know. But because they really like to live in Hong Kong, because you know that they are free, you know, they have rights to, get together, particularly once a week, you know, and normally in Sundays. So that's why we know that there is Victoria Park. They are allowed by Hong Kong's government, you know, to get together, you know, every week, you know, once a week, you know. So in general, there is no serious case for our citizen in Hong Kong, actually.
Right. Is the Consul General staying in touch with our migrant workers? Are they reporting to you, Mr. Yul, on a regular basis just to tell our government on how they're doing or should any problem arise?
Yeah, if they have any issues, any problems, they contact us. You know, in addition to that, every single week, you know, that particularly on Sunday, that I visit them. You know, on the ground, on the field. You know, I go to Victoria Park and other part of Hong Kong. You know, and meet with them, and have conversation with them, even though, let's say, for a couple of minutes, for 30 minutes, or for 1 hour, So by having this one, that we know the situation, and in addition to that, that we also collaborate with the Hong Kong's police force, So whenever there is a case, that they report to us,
Right. Well, here also at home in Indonesia, we rarely hear about any predicaments, any problems pertaining to our migrant workers in Hong Kong. Just the last bit of news we received was during the election day, where tens of thousands of our migrant workers couldn't, cast their votes on the day, but then it was accommodated the next day, right after that. But I'd like to go back to what you said earlier about the special agenda for the Indonesian Week in Hong Kong coming this October. Mr. Consul General, what was the idea, the initial idea for our Consul General to come up with this event and gathering?
Okay, so let me start from the beginning, Mr. Rahmat, because I arrived in Hong Kong this last year, at the end of October, Before that, I was in Germany up to July last year, And when I arrived in Hong Kong, I tried to check, all sectors, regarding Indonesian and Hong Kong relationships. And it is like I'm not satisfied with the situation, particularly in terms of economy, like the trade volume between Indonesia and Hong Kong, So that's why I talked to myself that we need to do something, we need to integrate our promotion, So that's why I met with my staff. I also met with our diaspora in Hong Kong, And in addition to that, why we comes to decisions to organize a big event this year, because this year we're gonna have a new government, and in many occasions, my colleagues, from Hong Kong, they ask me that what will happen after you have a new government. So it means that they have, a little bit worried about Indonesia, So that's why we need to do something, better and a big one, So that's why this is actually the idea. And the other ones that I would like to introduce also our new capital. Nusantara, because there are many questions, about Nusantara, So this is actually some considerations why we come to decisions to organize a big event this year.
Right. So hopefully after the 50 delegates from Hong Kong visit the future capital of Nusantara during the November agenda, you'll hear more about their optimism and the prospect of Hong Kong investing in the new capital. Mr. Yeoh.
Yeah, they will be visiting Nusantara next month. It is coordinated by Indonesian Chamber of Commerce Hong Kong. So like I mentioned before, that there are 50 businessmen, 50 investors. So we hope by visiting Nusantara, we can have more investment from Hong Kong to Indonesia.
Right. I'd like to get your perspective on this, Mr. Kus. How optimistic are we to have investments, FDI, coming in to our future capital from Hong Kong?
Well, I'm very optimistic about that one. But I also have some question, actually, or even worry, especially because of new law actually applied in Hong Kong. Beginning in the 28th of June or 1st of July 2023.
Yeah.
And we're just waiting what kind of operationalization they would likely to have. And it would, of course, impact on the concrete relation between Indonesia and Hong Kong, because it is a general trend that it seems to me that the central government in Beijing becoming on grip stronger and stronger towards Hong Kong and so on. But of course there will be no immediate impact, say until sometime next 5 years and so on. But it's of course a different story if you are going to discuss the thing that might be happening in 2030s and this kind of stuff. So I think it is always good to have a show like the one scheduled in October and so on and so forth, because again and again, basically people-to-people relations, communication, providing information and so on and so forth is the very foundation of good relation between the two economic entities between Indonesia and Hong Kong.
Right.
Yeah.
I'd like to go over more about the people-to-people relations, especially with the fact that the newly instated rule of the foreign relation laws by the mainland China and how will impact the relations between Indonesia and Hong Kong. More on that after we return in the next segment right here on Special Dialogue. Mr. Consul General and Pak Kus, please stay with us and we'll be right back in just a few minutes. Don't go anywhere. And you're still watching Special Dialogue here on TVR World, exploring cooperation opportunities between Indonesia and Hong Kong. Still joining us from Hong Kong is the Consul General of the Republic of Indonesia to Hong Kong, Mr. Yul Edison, and also right here, international politics observer Kusnanto Anggoro. Our final segment now, over to you, Mr. Consul Generals. I'd like to highlight more on the people-to-people relations of Indonesia and Hong Kong. And adding into the fact that, I mean, you mentioned that less than a year ago you were appointed as Consul General over in Hong Kong, meaning that you probably didn't get to see first-hand account of what happened a couple of years ago when massive protest happened in Hong Kong in regards to their relations with the mainland China. Have you heard the latest updates on that, Mr. Consul General, in regards to that authority asserted by mainland China over Hong Kong and its impact to the relations between Indonesia and Hong Kong?
In general, I don't, see any obstacles, any impacts on the relationship between Indonesia and Hong Kong, But what I know, the last, development in Hong Kong, they implement a new policy. It is related to security, how to tighten security, this year, because, they learn from the, what they call the massive protests in 2019 up to 2020, But I stick to what the chief executive said in his letters to our president-elect, He sent a letter to our president. He mentions, that Hong Kong is committed, to further fostering bilateral trades, facilitating two-way investment, and enhancing protection of Indonesian citizens. So this is, a promise from the chief executive of Hong Kong. So that's why I don't see any obstacles, any impact of the, related to what happens 3 years ago.
Right. So it's heartwarming, definitely, to hear that there is this commitment on behalf of Hong Kong government, particularly a letter from the chief executive herself to the president-elect, Mr. Prabowo Subianto, who has actually made a special visit and spoke to Xi Jinping, President Xi Jinping in China himself. Mr. Consul General, beyond the economic and trading cooperations of Indonesia and Hong Kong, culturally, from other aspects, tourism, for example, how do we do in this particular sector?
So I see that there are some efforts from our side, actually. For instance, that earlier this year, that the Ministry of Tourism and Creative Economy delegations, it hosted a sales missions and participated in a travel fair in Hong Kong to introduce our super priority tourism destination.
Yeah, all the 10 other destinations than Bali, right?
But we need to handle some internal issue. That let's say we can say like issue between us. For instance, the visa exemption for the holder of Hong Kong's passport. Because it is revoked like 2 or 3 years ago, because right now that Indonesians, they really enjoy, the visa exemption from Hong Kong for 30 days, So that is one issue. Another issue it is that how we make that our super destination is more attractive to tourists from Hong Kong, because before COVID, the number of tourists from Hong Kong visited Indonesia almost 100,000, but last year only 14,000. Can you imagine that one, Mr. Rahman?
Yeah.
So we have this is our homework actually.
Yeah, that is a massive decrease, 100,000 to merely 14,000, as you said. Would that be in the agenda as well for our November event over at the Consul General, Mr. Eddie?
Yeah. In November, that we're gonna have the delegations from Indonesia, from the Ministry of Tourism and Creative Economy, and also from the Investments Tourism Board, and also from some provinces in Indonesia, So we will make Hong Kong, that becomes the we would like to. So that's why we would like to organize the biggest Indonesian events in Hong Kong, at least in the last 10 years.
You're inviting representatives from our ministries and from different organizations in Indonesia. What are we showcasing at the event, and where will it take place in Hong Kong? Over at the Consul General building or somewhere else that would garner attentions of the Hong Kong public?
We will showcase the Indonesian cuisine, the Indonesian arts, and also Indonesians like dances, and also we also invite some artists from Indonesia, and in addition to that, we also we will also give the stage for our domestic helpers, because they have their own, what do you call this, a culture club,
Yeah.
So they can perform dance and songs, in our event,
Yeah. So that will be a talent show for our Indonesian diaspora, including our workers there as well, Mr. Yo.
Yeah, and the venue of the event, particularly in the last 2 days, on the 2nd and the 3rd of November, will be in the prime location in Hong Kong. With the it is close to the ocean, the sea actually. So it's really easy to for everybody to go there.
To attend.
So this is prime location. It's not easy to find prime location in Hong Kong.
Yeah. Well, considering the crowds and just the sheer amount of people visiting Hong Kong, that would be an excellent opportunity for us to showcase, and more importantly, not only to the invitees, but also to the general public of Hong Kong to have more interest towards Indonesia.
Yeah.
We are almost out of time, Mr. Consul General. Just my last question to both of you. First, to you first, Mr. Krisnanto Anggoro. How do you see the trajectory of the cooperations of Indonesia building in the near future, 5-10 years from now?
Well, there will be a very important geopolitical shift during the next 5 to 10 years.
Amidst the rivalries of U.S. and China.
Yeah, something like that.
In between.
And Hong Kong would remain, likely to remain in its place as a unique position, especially because I mentioned before that the new policy invoked by Beijing, for example, would likely to take a while before effective in terms of how they would implement it in Hong Kong and so on and so forth. And according to study that I had, it needs between 5 to 10 years to be effective, meaning that there will be more or less stability within the context of Indonesia relation with Hong Kong. Again, within that context of stabilization or stability, it always necessary actually to get into new avenue of relationship based on creativity, innovation, and the future relationship between Indonesia and Hong Kong. And again, in some aspect, like mentioned already by the Consul General about the digital economy, green energy, global climate change, respond, and so on and so forth, it's very much important within that context.
And we need to nurture also our cooperations in education sectors, our high education institutions working together and learning from each other.
Yes, sure.
Mr.
And
Kusnanto,
Hong Kong was
yeah.
many potential about that, like in Hong Kong Polytechnic, for example, or Hong Kong International University. And we have a lot of potential university as well in Indonesia. And of course, some Indonesians actually interested in learning more politics about Indo-Pacific, especially with China and so on.
Yeah.
Just like the one in the past, our relation is good during the 2nd, 7th century, especially because the academic relationship between Indonesia and China, say between Sriwijaya and Tang Dynasty is very
Yes,
close.
and over to you, lastly, Mr. Consul General. You, of course, handle not only the region of Hong Kong, but Macau. In your opinion, how are we expanding more of these cooperations in the futures, notably with the upcoming visit of the delegations of Hong Kong to Indonesia and to our future capital, for us to see these cooperations to flourish, not only for Hong Kong, but also for Macau within your jurisdiction?
Yeah, so this is, I mean, the beauty of having a status of, I mean, like as under the principles of one country, two systems, you know. And I'm very optimistic that at least, I mean, like for the, let's say, 20 years to come, that we have great relationship with Hong Kong, you know. There will be I mean, like many changes actually. As I mentioned earlier, you know, that Indonesia and Hong Kong have maintained a friendly relationship for so many years. And I believe that our bond will only get even stronger in the future. And I do believe Indonesia and Hong Kong stand ready to work hand in hand to deepen our friendship and explore new areas of cooperations. Like you mentioned also the education sector, you know.
Yeah.
And I believe that by harnessing the potential of our two economies and leveraging our respective strengths, we can advance and mutually beneficial partnerships, bringing even more significant benefits to our peoples and to the regions. And regarding Macau, Macau is also, it is under the principles, it is one country, two systems, you know, and we are also working on it. So 2 months ago that I accompanied our Minister of Labor, you know, she came to Macau and she met with the chief executive of Macau. And one of the topic discussed during the meeting, it is we need to send our skilled workers, you know, to work in the hospitality sectors in Macau, because we know Macau has more casinos
And
more
hotels, yeah.
and more restaurants, you know.
Yeah.
So this is the one area that we can collaborate with Macau.
Right. Well, thank you very much for your insights and analysis on that, Mr. Consul General. And hopefully some of us from TVR Our World can be over in Hong Kong in November to have the first-hand account, the grandeur and the merriment of Indonesia Week organized by the Consul General of Hong Kong. And again, I have to extend my appreciations first to our guest here in the studio, our international politics observer, Mr. Kusnanto Anggoro. Thank you very much, sir, for your insights. And also over in Hong Kong, our Consul General of the Republic of Indonesia to Hong Kong and Macau, Mr. Yul Edison. Thank you very much, Mr. Consul General, for sharing with us your words and your insights on our cooperations. Thank you again.
Thank you, Mr. Ahmad.
Terima kasih, Pak Konjen. Salam hormat, Pak Konjen.
Thank you.
If you visit Hong Kong, Pak, just let us know, Pak.
Sure. We hope to see you soon. Pak Kus will see you probably next month, as you said. And that concludes our special dialogue here on TVR Our World, giving us a glimpse of a bright future of cooperations between the Republic of Indonesia and the Special Administrative Zone of Hong Kong. There's great lights at the end of the tunnel. And finally, I'm Rahmat Idris bidding you adieu. Thank you very much for watching from Jakarta, Indonesia. Bye-bye.